Hello everybody and welcome back to Juno New Origins, where I've got some serious Delta V concerns here. I'm not actually certain that we can make this happen, even just landing on one of these. I think we might need a little bit more DV than what we've got here, which is fine. I mean, we're definitely moving a lot further out at this point. So a redesign is not necessarily the worst thing in the world. So I've already found us an encounter here. I'm not convinced that we're going to have the Delta V to do this. But let's get this set up and let's let this burn complete here. So that's going to be like a 4-minute burn. We're absolutely going to warp through that. But yeah, I'm very concerned right now that we're not going to have enough DV to actually land on this. I wonder if maybe we should instead try to land on Orcus. We do have the parachutes here. But I'm just looking at the amount of DV that we have left in our stage here, 2.28 kilometers per second. This braking burn is going to be another 600 meters per second. I don't know. I'm actually thinking about landing on Orcus instead. We can aero brake that at least. Another 500 meters per second here, so we'd have about 1.5 kilometers per second. I'm just wondering how much the braking burn here is going to be. Yeah, I have serious DV concerns right now. Let's see what this braking burn ends up looking like. We might have to redesign our interplanetary transfer stage, which honestly we probably need to do anyway. I'd like to get that switched over to like ion engines or something. Hopefully they would be, you know, less of a horrible burn time than in KSP. We can definitely hope, but that would be ideal. We can think about something along those lines. So that would be a fairly significant redesign, but overall I think we're fine with this section, broadly speaking. But yeah, I'm concerned about this DV. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so this is apparently going to be an impact trajectory. We don't necessarily want that, so I'm thinking a planned burn somewhere around here. That's very sensitive. Okay, so we're going to move this to be somewhere around 50. No, not 50. I'm thinking 30 kilometers. So this will be about here or so, right? So that's going to be about 0.5 meter per second. We should be able to execute that. That shouldn't be an issue. So we'll just do a very small corrective burn here on the way in. There we go. That's fine. And now we'll warp down over this direction. And we're going to get to this intercept. So that's going to be, let's just go ahead and do this. So the question is, what's this braking burn going to look like, right? That's gonna be fast. Okay. We're barely affected by its gravity here. So this is going to be a pretty hefty braking burn. To circularize this is going to be something like 31, yeah, so this is going to be about 2 kilometers per second. We've got 1.62 kilometers per second. Okay. What's our trajectory looking like? Yeah. I think we just need to redesign that interplanetary transfer stage and run this one again. I don't think there's any real way around it. So we're not going to be able to land this even on Miros, which is the easiest world to land on here. Delta V requirements are just too high. So we're going to need to definitely soup this thing up a little bit. Let's go ahead and destroy this craft. And we are going to definitely need to work on that. So let's hop into our build here. And instead of running this Methalox engine, which is quite efficient to be sure, I want to hop into the tech tree and see what we've got available. We've got a lot of tech points right now that we've racked up. We've got 982 of them. And what's this deep space? Ah, ion engines. Those will be useful. They're very expensive, but we're going to grab that. So that'll be a very good thing there. And then what else are we interested in? Liquid hydrogen without any oxidizer, necessary for combustionless nuclear engines. Those are expensive, but I'm going to grab it. Okay. Oh, we got an achievement. Unlock a total of 50 tech tree nodes. Cool. So that is absolutely fine. And then we could just work on some of these other tech tree nodes, just try to like work our way through this, right? So we can unlock this. We can unlock this. There we go. Direct feedback would be the next one, followed by around the world. And then pushing air. That's a lot of stuff there. Cool. And moving fixtures. A TARDIS for wheels. Okay. Monster Trucker. And Alien Explorer. There we go. So that's all tier 4 tech nodes. I like it. And now we can grab one of these. And I guess we can get like larger landing gear. Not that we're going to need it for right now. Okay, so there's most of our tech. Let's hop on back. And I'm definitely leaning towards having this stage be nuclear, or rather ion powered. So that is fine. The main problem is going to potentially be that of energy, right? Battery power. So let's ditch this engine here. And we probably don't need anywhere near this length at this point. I'd like this radius to be exactly at 1 meter. And we're going to have this fuel probably end up being xenon. But for right now, I want to see, and this is going to save us a lot of weight, so this is going to push us further as well. So we can put in this ion engine, and my question is, how much electricity are we going to require for this? Our previous stage here required electricity as well. So you can see that in orbit over Drew, this is going to be a thrust to weight of 0.00. Let's see what our options are here. We can crank up the size. This is up to 2 million. In theory, we'd want it to be like 300%. This is 1.5 million. So this is going to be more expensive, but that's probably fine, I think. This would be a 30.39 day burn time. So this is way too much of xenon, I think. What would our DV here be? 21 kilometers per second. That's a lot of kilometers per second. No doubt about that. So, I'm wondering about some weirdness here. Well, I don't think we need 3 tons of xenon. Let's move this down to, like, 2 tons worth of xenon. What's 0.75 meters? Okay, what about 0.7 meters? 0.65. 0.66? 2.03 tons. That'll be fine. Then we would put on this guy, right? So this is going to be 14.9 kilometers per second. That is so much more than what we had before. As a hypothetical, what would happen if we ditched this tank and made this xenon up here instead of Keralox? So this is 910 kilograms, but if we made this be xenon here, like that, oh, you can see the price on that fuel is so high. I mean, that's probably okay, though. So then we can cut this down, in theory, to somewhere around half this size, maybe like 0.2 meters. And most of our xenon would be stored up in this header tank for right now. Then we would attach this back on, but we would not need that interstage to be anywhere near as big. That's for sure. We're definitely going up in size a little bit, but this interstage could be just like this length, something like that. This is going to be a shorter rocket. That is not how I wanted that to be attached. There we go. And that, of course, means that we can bring this up to being 1 meter in length, like that. And our xenon is still going to be, you know, pretty expensive, but we've, at this point, got a pretty decent amount of the stuff. So this thinks that we have 10.7 kilometers per second. It's false. I don't know exactly how much we have, but it's going to be a lot. My main question is, what is our power requirement on this engine going to be? So the power consumption is 735 kilowatts. Okay, so these solar panels here, they, under peak efficiency, can produce 1.62 kilowatts each. And we've got 2 of them. So that's going to be enough to produce, like, roughly half of the... Wait, no. Nowhere near half of the power consumption here. This is going to drain power incredibly quickly. 735 kilowatts, and we can store 11.8 kilowatt hours. So that means that our entire battery here... Yeah, we're going to need a battery stage. Okay, so we're going to need to put in a battery here. No doubt about that. And that would be a fuel tank that would go here. This is going to be far too long. I would like to have it be like maybe around 1 meter or so. And then this is going to be... Fuel type is going to be battery, like that. So that'll store 1,187 kilowatt hours. This engine drains at 735 kilowatts. So that will help matters. But I don't know by how much. The question is, how quickly will we drain that battery, right? And we're going to pipe the xenon from here to here. So we'll have a lot more xenon than the game thinks we do. The game thinks we have 8.72 kilometers per second. It's going to be a lot more than that. A whole lot more than that. Okay, let's go ahead and save this for now. This is an updated version of our planet visitor, and this is going to potentially have a couple of problems. Extraordinarily long burn times on those ion engines, and since we can only go to 2x, that's going to be painful. We'll see how that feels. The other potential concern is very, very, very rapid power drain. We will see how that is as well. I want to do a test flight of this, so let's put this out on the DSC bay. Okay, so we're going to have to get this thing up into orbit, and then we can run our testing on it, right? So that's the idea here. I'm going to hit the spacebar the moment we can. Okay, now we need to come in here and turn off that sound, because that's going to be all sorts of buggy. And I want to put this over at 85 degrees east. There we go. And we're out of here. I actually don't know where this was in the staging either. Hopefully it put it in the right place. So obviously, not a great frame rate at this time. That is to be expected, and at this point, I'm going to cut out this section of the ascent stage. We will be back once we have some semblance of frame rate. See you guys in just a moment. Okay, so here we are most of the way through the low frame rate portion. We've got about 17 seconds of burn time left on these SRBs. Let me bump it up to 2x here, and we'll be through that very, very quickly, in theory. So that's all looking good. And as you can see, we're in that 45-degree attitude, or supposed to be. We're not quite there, but that's fine. We've got about 8 seconds of burn time left here. This frame rate is way worse at 2x, so let's bring this back down to 1x for right now. I'm not sure that that's actually an improvement, but we've only got a couple seconds of burn time left here in these SRBs. Apoapsis is looking solid, but we're going to hold this attitude until stage separation. 2, 1... And, okay, get rid of all those engines. Fantastic. Now I want to drop us over to, this time I'm going to do 20 degrees, because we overshot last time. And we can turn our sound back on. That'll be excellent, now that we no longer are massively overloading the audio bus. Cool. So there we go. We'll put this at 20 degrees for now. Looks like it's holding pretty steady at 20, actually. So let's drop this right on down to 0. We're still at 50 kilometers here. I think the attitude control from these fins is doing pretty okay. We'll move this into orbital mode, and let's see how this is. Yeah, looks pretty decent for right now. So let's just get ourselves as much lateral velocity built up as we can. Now, we know we might have a couple of very major issues. Specifically, we might not have the thrust to weight to achieve orbital velocity anymore. Remember, we had to use about 500 meters per second from this stage previously. We'll see if that's a thing. That'll be very interesting. But this will tell us what we need to know. This is a test flight. I'm not planning on this going out to a planet. So that'll be absolutely okay for now. Let's just continue to get that lateral speed built up. We've got about 1 kilometer per second left in this. This should be a substantially lighter payload, so this will carry us further. This might carry us to orbital velocity. We will see. Remember, we can't stop this burn since it's SRBs, so it is what it is. I don't think this is quite going to take us to orbital, but it'll be pretty close. We should definitely extend our solar panels at this time. We're going to need whatever we can in terms of power generation. I don't believe this will be enough, but I want to know by how much. Okay. So now we're going to stage here. This stage looks correct. And we're going to throttle this up. Okay, yeah. So you can see this is very low thrust to weight. It's existent. It does exist, but it's incredibly low. Now, we're still at 100% battery, which actually surprises me. That surprises me a lot. So we're currently generating 844 watts here and 882 watts here. Call it 1.6 kilowatts. And then this is currently using 735 kilowatts. So we're draining the battery, but this is in kilowatt hours. So that's able to burn for quite a long time. And this is considered a tank set. Noted. I also want to know whether we're draining from up here. 2.01 tons, 100%. This is claiming 100% for both of these. So I don't know whether we're draining this correctly, but the stage DV here, it's not correct. It thinks that we have 2.16 kilometers per second, but in reality, we should be draining here and filling here. So this number will be steadily increasing, but our thrust to weight is so very low that I don't think we're going to achieve orbital velocity at this time. Another thing to think about is, should we downsize this and run multiple smaller ion engines? And the answer to that is quite possibly yes. I think we should find the sweet spot for that. But yeah, the thrust to weight to this is incredibly low, and that's expected. So at this point, I don't believe it's possible for this to achieve orbit, but this has told us basically what we needed to know, which is that we can have good long burns here and then recharge with these solar panels. That's exactly what I wanted to know on that front. I don't know if this is enough to burn, at a decent rate. But you can see here, we're currently about 40 seconds to apoapsis. We're not going to achieve orbital velocity because the thrust to weight is too low. But this is not intended necessarily to achieve orbital velocity. So that's all understood. Now, another thing we could think about doing is putting in a docking port down here, having this be kind of a self-contained spacecraft, and being able to dock and undock in orbit of our destined locations, right? So that's definitely something that we can think about. It almost feels like functionally unlimited fuel at this point. It's not, strictly speaking, but it kind of feels like it. Our main trade-off, of course, is that our thrust to weight is nearly non-existent. We're not going to achieve orbit. At this point, we are going down, and that's fine. I'm wondering, yeah, we're still like 500 meters per second from orbit. So that's not really going to be a thing. We could put in a small kick stage up here to try to kick this into orbit. It's a theoretical possibility. I want to just undo and exit this for now. So that's a theoretical possibility, but this is proofed out to me that we'll be fine-ish on battery. In theory, we'll be fine-ish on battery. Thrust to weight is a significant concern, and this is a very expensive engine, right? So this engine is 1.5 million compared to the overall craft cost of like... Well, it's a little higher. Game froze for a moment there. It's a little higher, but what's the overall craft cost right now? 7.5 million. So this is definitely a significant chunk of that, right? If we were to drop this down to 100x, we could have 3 of these engines for the same price as 1. So my question is, how much thrust is this? So this is 20 newtons. And at 300% size, this is 60 newtons. So that is exactly the same. The specific impulse is exactly the same as well. So 245 kilowatts versus 735 kilowatts. That is different. Okay, what's 245 times 3? 735. No, that's not different. Never mind, I mathed wrong. So it's exactly the same in terms of every single metric then. Because this is 1.5 million, that would be the same cost. The mass is 900 kilograms versus 300 kilograms. The thrust is identical. The specific impulse is identical. The fuel consumption is identical, and the power consumption is identical. So every stat here is completely identical. There is no reason to not have this craft, or rather to have this engine be sized up and have 3 smaller ones versus 1 big one. However, the size is different. So if we were to put this guy here instead, look at this. We could have as many as 5 like that, and even spread them out like this and put a 6th one in there. So space is the differentiating factor here. This would be relatively expensive, but this would be double the thrust of what we had previously. So that's definitely an attractive concept, but it's also going to be double the power consumption. That's something we need to consider. Absolutely. So what I'm thinking right now is we do this, and then we have a kick stage here. And the idea behind that, of course, is that this would be a fairly cheap stage that is intended to just push us up into orbit. So it would need to be fairly okay on the thrust to weight. We wouldn't need a very long burn time. I'm not that concerned about the specific impulse on it, but we would need a fairly okay thrust to weight. So this would be like not a, I don't think it was a Titan engine. I think it was a Wyvern engine that we had previously on here. So it was like this guy, right? And we needed to change this over to being electrically fed, which we can definitely still do. And then this is currently liquid methalox, which seems okay. Specific impulse is 366 seconds, and yeah, that seems fine. This is in vacuum. So we want to have the nozzle throat size be fairly low, but we need the thrust to weight on this to be pretty okay. This is currently 0.25. Okay, so that's 0.26, and that's going to be the best thrust to weight. But we're going to want to crank this up to at least half, but I'm thinking somewhere around full thrust to weight. That's going to cut our specific impulse somewhat, but that's okay. So something along the lines of that as a kick stage to put us into orbit, and then do maybe a little bit of orbital maneuvers, but not very much. That's mostly just to get us into orbit, and this stage is, well, we're going to need to definitely think about the staging. We'll put an interstage in here, and that is sized to fit, and then we would put this on like that. So then we'd need to check our staging, and this would be, yeah, this is correct. This would be correct, and then we would have the interstage and these 6 engines fire. And then we would have these engines, the landing legs, and the inner stage. That's all fine. And then the parachutes. Yeah, that seems good. Okay, so stage 1, we'd have 2.52 kilometers per second. So that would get us, you know, up into the upper atmosphere. Stage 2 is mostly about building up that lateral speed. And then stage 3 would be mostly about putting us into orbit. Now, that's got 1.46 kilometers per second, so we'll even be able to get some of our escape velocity burn out of that. That's going to make things a little awkward timing-wise, because our thrust to weight is going to be real low. No doubt about that. And then this, it claims it only has 2.03 kilometers per second, but it's actually way higher than that, because we've got the Xenon up over here. And then stage 5 with its 1.6 kilometers per second, but that's actually higher as well, because in theory, this Xenon would be drained. In theory. But in actuality, it wouldn't be, would it? In most situations, we're going to have leftover Xenon up here and nowhere to put it. So that's definitely something to think about. But it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we will consider what that means for us in terms of our overall quantity of Xenon. We may end up moving the Xenon into this tank and extending this tank and having this go back to Karalox. That kind of depends on what our kick stage orbital insertion ends up looking like. But for now, you can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Andy McGar, Dark Horse, Xenocyte, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.